This is the final project video for CSSE 120 for Drew Huffman, Gavin Roumpf, and Mark Hankins. So we decided to construct an apple falling game where the player controls a basket at the bottom of the screen using the left and right arrow keys, and he uses the basket to catch apples falling from the sky. And with that comes a couple things. There are rotten apples on the screen that can be caught and will cause you to lose lives. Now, you're attributed 3 lives to start the game. Any lives can obviously be lost by catching the rotten apples, and the game will actually end once you catch 3 of the rotten apples. There's 2 right there. And also, catching normal apples will attribute you a couple points, and you'll move up levels as you catch apples. And you'll lose lives as you catch rotten apples, and the game actually ends once you catch 3 rotten apples and lose all of your lives. Let's get started at looking into the code here. We'll start off with the basket class that we constructed. The basket is given a screen and an X and Y position. Now these 2 positions will actually change when you move. When you hit your arrow keys, they'll move left and right, or the X will, but not the Y. Sorry. And then we also have a draw method, which just splits the image onto the screen. And then we have a caught apple method, which just creates a hitbox for the basket so that it can, tell whenever an apple has collided with the basket and makes the apple caught in the basket. We'll move on to the heart class now. This class has a screen and has a number of lives. So we could technically make the amount of lives whatever we wanted, but we made it 3 for our game. And this also has a draw method as well along with it. We'll move on to the level class now, which is attributed to screen. Pretty basic stuff there. And a draw again, and we use PyGame's font render to be able to create this image. And I will move on to the apples class. The apples are given a screen to be placed on and an X and Y value, a speed, and a state, which is basically is rotten. We'll get more into that when we do when we run through the main code of this game. But basically, if the is rotten is true, it will gain the rotten image. And if it is false, then it will gain the normal apple image. This class can draw itself, and it also knows how to fall, which is basically just adding the speed on top of the Y position for the particular apple. Next off, we have the off-screen method. This just tells when the Y position of the apple is greater than the screen height, and once that happens, it will return true, and it'll eventually get removed from the screen. It's which you can see in the main code. Let's move over to the main code, why don't we? So in the main code to start, this is mainly just where we set up a lot of our variables. Up here is where we construct our window itself, and we give it a name. Raining apples is what we call the game. And we also load in a lot of our sounds that you'll see throughout the code to kind of make it a submersive experience for the game player. Here we have us constructing most of our variables, such as like the apple list and the amount of lives that we have that will be used throughout the code. Now moving into the game loop, we see the how many frames our game will have, and some basic stuff to get it going. And we'll move into our events now. This first event is the is game over. This is basically just a true or false statement. If the game over is true, then you'll get the game over screen that you saw whenever I lost in the little demo that I did there. If it's false, then the game continues to play, obviously. Now this is placed at the top of the code here so that whenever the game actually ends, all these other things have a chance to update. So, you don't have like an extra life hanging on the screen when the game over screen pops up. And then as we continue down here, actually next up we have the hearts, the amount of hearts you have. If it is equal to 0, then it will change is game over to true, and then the next trip through the loop will actually stop the loop itself. Moving down, we have our apples section. The apples section basically is where we construct all the apples that go into your apple list. So all the apples are given a random starting X value, and which will not change, and it's also given a speed. As you can see, the speed is actually going to increase as your level count goes up throughout the game. This is to make it a little bit harder as the game goes on, or else you may be sitting there catching apples forever. Also, in this statement, we have a random integer between 0 and 10. Now, if this number is equal to 9, then you will receive a rotten apple. So there's technically a 1 in 10 chance that a rotten apple will appear on the screen. If it is not equal to 9, the random integer, then you will get just a regular old apple, which we don't want too many rotten apples on the screen, or you're probably not going to have much of a chance to win or get a very good score. After all this has been decided, the apple will then be constructed and appended to the apple list. Moving down, this section has where our apples will fall from the screen. So this is where I mentioned in the apple class where the y value of the apple will change depending on the speed that it was given to begin with. This next section right here is how we move our basket. So if the left arrow key is pressed, then the basket will move to the left 20 pixels, and if it's the right arrow key that is pressed, then it'll move to the right 20 pixels. And we've also added this little code here so that your basket doesn't, run off the screen or anything like that. You wouldn't want to lose the basket. Now moving down, we have, what happens to your apples as they fall. There's really 4 things, and there's 2 different categories. Your apple can either be rotten or not rotten, and they can either be caught or not caught. So for the not caught apples, if it's a rotten apple, the apple will actually just be removed from the list altogether, the apple list, and it'll be removed off the screen. Trying to help with hopefully not crashing our computer when there's hundreds, if not thousands, of apples trying to be loaded onto the screen. If the apple is not rotten and it's a good apple, well, then you're going to lose 5 points for it, allowing it to fall off screen. This creates a little bit of incentive for the player to go ahead and try to catch every apple that they can, and not just try to dodge all of the rotten apples. Moving down, if the basket actually catches the apple and it is rotten, then you are going to lose a life. So like I said, you get 3 lives in the game. If you catch a rotten apple, you lose a life. If the rotten apple is caught and you have still more than 1 life, then you will get a little bad apple play, like a little bad apple sound that goes along with that. And if you catch a good apple down here, you'll get a little good apple play, good apple sound that's added to the game. And once the apple's caught, it'll remove the apple from the list, and you'll gain 10 points for catching that apple. This next part right here is how we do our scoreboard and our level counter. So basically how our game is set up is every level is attributed to 100 points. So from 0 all the way up to 200 is level 1. And then after that, every 100 points will gain you the next level. So from 200 to 300, you're in level 2, 300 to 400, level 3, and so on and so forth. And if you exceed that number for the next level, then the level counter will go up or go down. If you miss an apple and go below the threshold, then you'll go down a level as well. This next part of the code is where we construct our pause screen. So the pause screen is actually activated by pressing the space bar on the keyboard. And once the space bar is pressed, the pause screen comes up and the display is updated, and we enter this while true loop. So the while true loop will continue to run until a certain need is met, and that need is pressing the left or right arrow key to get the game going once again. And once this is actually pressed, the game will unpause and you'll be able to continue your play. This stuff down here is pretty basic. It's just all of our draw methods that we use to kind of put the image onto the screen so that the player can see it. Wouldn't be much of a game without it, I wouldn't say. And then the display is obviously updated down here. Down here we have two more methods that were just constructed for helping in the main code, but didn't necessarily have a need for a class. These are pretty basic methods themselves. And then we end up calling main here down at the bottom. And that's pretty much it. That's how you get your raining apples game. I'll show another demo here. The apples fall from the sky and you try to catch them. I missed all of them there. And you get a little sound when you catch them, a little fun sound. Ooh, and when you catch the rotten apples, you get a kind of a nastier sound of you losing a life. So this game obviously again can be paused by hitting the spacebar and then resumed by hitting the left and right arrow keys. Catching an apple will grant you 10 points, and then missing an apple will grant you -5 points. And the levels go up, and the apples get faster as you continue to climb levels. Just as you can see there, we're now in level 2, above 200 points. Once this final life goes away, you will see the game over screen again. That was implemented. If I can find a bad apple somewhere. Oh, I missed it. There we go. So the game over screen pops up once you lost all 3 of your lives and you catch 3 bad apples. And you'll have to exit out of the game and hit play again to play it again if you wish. But that's pretty much it. That is Raining Apples for our CSSE 120 final project. Thank you.